Thank you very much indeed. Welcome everyone. I'm Darren Sanders. I'm the Liberal Democrat Councillor for Baffins, North Milton and South Cotner. I'm also the Cabinet Member for Housing and Tackling Homelessness. Welcome to the latest round of decision-making meetings, in particular to Derek, and I will deal with Derek in due course. So before I begin, I have to offer up some safety information, which is that if the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery by the stairwells. Do not attempt to use the lifts. Please assemble at the Queen Victoria statue in, it says, the Guildhall Square, which is bad English. In order to comply with the fire marshal regulations of the Guildhall Trust, whose building we're in today, anyone who signed in at the reception desk should sign out when leaving the building at the end of the meeting. Now, the delightful news is that this meeting is being live streamed. It'll also be available on demand if people can't see it live. Everyone speaking via a microphone will be on camera. Sadly, that's currently me, but that does include people making deputations as well. Members of the press and public, of which we have possibly one, but maybe none, we'll come to that in a second, are also permitted to record the meeting on the understanding that it neither disrupts the meeting nor records those stating explicitly they don't wish to be recorded. Please, can everyone use the microphones? Remember to switch them off when they've finished. So here endeth the lesson. So I'll just introduce everybody, starting on my left.
Alison Harper, Local Democracy Officer.
Thank you, Alison. Then I'll use the back and then go down the front. So hello you.
Hi there, David Lavender, Building Projects Manager.
Thank you for coming, David.
Patrick Leggett, Head of Capital Projects.
Thank you for coming.
Adam Hardwick, Assistant Director Buildings.
Thanks. Now you at the back.
I'm Esther Sayre. I'm a Business Administration apprentice, and I'm just here to observe today.
Oh, you lucky person. We'll see if we're any good. Then I'll move to the middle row.
Thank you. James Hill, Director of Housing, Neighbourhood and Building Services.
And you, madam? If, there's no need to apologise. None of us get it right either. You're perfectly fine now. X. I have. We'll come to the apologies in a second, but thank you for that, Mary. And then the front row.
Good afternoon. I'm Councillor Derek North for Cosham and Wimmering.
Thank you very much.
Spencer Gardner, Member for Drayton and Farlington.
Raj Ghosh, Member for Charles Dickens Ward.
Okay, thanks very much. So for Mary and for Derek, and I know this is Derek's first meeting as the Portsmouth Independent Housing spokeshuman, just a few ideas about how we work, which is that officers will do a presentation. Today it's only for one item. Then the Residents' Consortium, which is a body that we not only legally but are delighted to consult with regularly, will ask questions, make comments. I don't mind really. And then each of the opposition political representatives, or Derek, Spencer and Raj, as we know them, can do that. I will vary the order when there's more than one item, but there ain't, so I'll have a think later on. And then I will sum up, okay? So that's just the process. The idea is to be as open as possible and ask as many questions, or none, as you wish, all right? So there's no rules aside from I sum up at the end. Who is doing we've got one, so we've got apologies for absence from members of the Residents' Consortium, which is Trevor Lovett, Greg Anderson and Mary Buxey. Okay, so I'm sure we'll get back to them when we can. Now, for Derek, Spencer and Raj, do you have anything interesting to declare?
Just that I'm a council tenant, but I'll do my best to make sure I don't make any impartial decisions through these meetings.
Okay. For Derek's benefit, I'll explain how the cabinet system works, which is that although opposition colleagues can make comments, I take the decisions. Okay, so it's not a benevolent dictatorship. Hopefully it's not a dictatorship. But the rules dreamt up under the rather silly cabinet system mean that essentially it's me gaff and me rules. But we try, as Raj and Spencer have now become accustomed, I tend not to try and work that way. Okay. So there's no decisions taken by anybody other than me. That's how the cabinet system allegedly works. Right, so we've only got one item today, which actually doesn't involve a decision at all. It just means some noting, so there's a chance just to raise some issues and have a chat. Okay, so Derek, your interest is what's described as personal but not prejudicial, because I know you're a council tenant, so thank you. So you're all right. Okay. So who wishes to open up with regards to the social housing decarbonisation projects? Will this be fun? Patrick.
Yes, thank you very much. So I'm just going to go through a brief summary of the report, starting with the purpose of the report, which is obviously, as Darren said, an information-only report. What the report's going to cover is the current energy performance of Portsmouth City Council's social housing stock, the progress and plans under two separate government-funded decarbonisation schemes, and those are namely Wave 2.2 of the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund and Wave 3.0 of the Warm Homes Social Housing Fund. To give a bit of background, Portsmouth Homes manages a diverse housing stock, much of it built in the post-war period between 1950 and 1970. The average EPC rating is a C, but many homes within our housing stock do fall below this standard. Government, specifically DESNZ, aims for all social housing to reach an EPC C by 2030, and they're currently consulting on this with the minimum energy efficiency standards. PCC's corporate plan prioritises the environmental sustainability of the stock and its assets in general, and also resident well-being. Currently, you'll see in the table that displays the performance of the social housing stock that there's a proportion of the stock that currently have no EPC data. Just for clarity, this is because we did have a previous policy where EPCs were only undertaken at a change of tenancy. This has now changed, and we are picking this up as standard in asset management surveys now, and that data is now improving, and we should shortly have more EPC data across the stock. Just to give a bit of overview of the Wave 2.2 scheme, so as mentioned, it's the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund, Wave 2.2, a funding scheme through the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero to improve properties currently below an EPC C rating, to improve measures to bring the EPC up to a C rating. The scheme was announced in autumn 2023 and invited local authorities and social housing providers to submit bids to undertake energy performance measures to improve the energy efficiency of the housing stock. Portsmouth Homes put forward a funding bid request of £1.9 million, and that was awarded to Portsmouth City Council with a minimum 50% co-funding requirement. We have a target of 141 homes to be targeted in the scheme. We're currently looking at providing this to 129 homes across the stock with an EPC D or lower. And the focus, as part of the Wave 2.2 scheme, is to focus on hard-to-treat system-built homes in Lee Park and Paulsgrove. And if you look at the table in section 3.7, you can see how that is broken down across archetypes of non-traditional housing in Paulsgrove and Lee Park. The measures in the scheme primarily focus on providing external wall insulation to the houses, and also providing loft insulation and installing double-glazed windows. And in terms of delivery, the programme started in April 2024 and is running until March 2026 in 6 phases, which can be referred to in table section 4.6. You can see how those are split across Lee Park and Paulsgrove. The progress as of June 2025, so we're slightly further than this now, but not much, is 107 homes have started in the actual works on site. 35 of those have completed, and we are currently learning some lessons from the actual project itself, and we've had some challenges, specifically around asbestos removal, some structural repairs before external wall insulation goes on, and the requirement to upgrade ventilation in the properties to meet the standards required of the funding and criteria of the funding. Just to give a bit of an update on the resident engagement that we've undertaken at this scheme. So we started with a high-level introduction letter about the scheme and also what the works would be that are going to be undertaken. And then we held 2 separate resident engagement events at the beginning of the project, and these were held in St Francis Church in Lee Park and also the Paulsgrove Community Centre in Paulsgrove. We also provided further updates via letter, and then when the contractors were appointed, undertook contractor engagement events with the residents that are affected by the scheme. So we've had a bit of resident feedback so far. Generally, I'd like to be. Generally, it's been reported to be quite positive. There's been focus on improved warmth in the homes, reduced noise in the property, and better air quality. And if you're interested, there's some quotes from residents in phase 1 of the project in the report that you can read. On the Wave 2.2 scheme, we're also starting to install monitoring sensors in the properties to start tracking temperature and humidity and air quality within the homes. And although this data is it's early days for the data, we're showing early signs that there's improved heat retention in the properties. And as we go into this winter, we should have more data built up, and we can hopefully see how that's changed the living conditions in the property. It should, however, be noted that based on the limited data that we've collected to date and how we can't definitely confirm at this stage how it's going to impact the properties every year, that information hasn't been included in this report. And as I come on to next steps later, you'll see that we will return to give an update another time. Moving on to Wave 3.0, so this was, again, a different scheme, and we put in a funding application for £1.7 million to, again, the Department of Energy and Net Zero. We were awarded successfully 1.1 million of the 1.7 that was requested, and we've got a slightly different approach to Wave 3, where we're looking at simpler, more cost-effective upgrades so that we can target more homes. And we're looking to target up to 200 homes currently that have an EPC-D, focusing on easy measures like loft insulation, installing double glazing, and undertaking low-cost intervention measures like LED light bulbs and improving thermostats and heatings within the property. The delivery for this project is from April 2025 to September 2028 in 3 phases, which can be referred to in section 8.6. And the status of the project at the moment is currently where we are agreeing the funding with the funding body and agreeing with them which properties are going to be targeted as part of this scheme. So the next steps, so we've got the Wave 2.2 delivery through to March 2026 to continue, begin the implementation of the Wave 3.0 schemes, and continue to maintain resident engagement and monitoring within the properties with completed measures. And we'll be returning in approximately 12 months with the outcomes of those measures as we get more data. And as always, we are continuing to seek and keep an eye out for any further funding opportunities for future decarbonisation efforts across Portsmouth Homes housing stock. So that concludes my summary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Patrick. Mary, did you have any questions or comments on behalf of the consortium for this? You can have as many as you like, don't worry. Hang on.
Oh, okay. Right, just one little question. With the EPC, I can see how bad it is with properties with no EPC. So I would hope that's what's going to be done first as a priority, because obviously as you go further down, it's more dangerous. And I've worked out in my little head while I was sitting there, it's like 55 to 45% either side of like C upwards, D downwards. And unfortunately, as 45 down, it should be at least the other way round within the first year. You shouldn't be waiting any length of time on the really bad ones down the bottom. And are there areas in specific that are being targeted for this?
Okay, that was actually going to be one of my questions as well, Mary. So, and it's not little, I have to say.
Yeah,
Patrick.
Happy to expand on that. So for those who haven't seen the table, the no EPC figure there is approximately 3,600 as of June. We are working as part of our asset management surveys, which are being undertaken at the moment, to undertake an EPC at all of those properties, so that data will improve. Just for clarity, undertaking an EPC will not improve the rating, it just determines the rating. So therefore, if we undertake an EPC, it could come back within the range of any of those A to G ratings. What we need to do to improve the rating above a C is implement improvement measures. So more loft insulation, for example, would give you a better EPC rating than a property that didn't have loft insulation. So the next step of that will be coming up with strategies as part of our asset management review to how we can target the properties across the stock and improve EPC ratings to get them to above a C. And as I said, we expect that the target date for that will be 2030, in accordance with the central government regulation coming up. In terms of the question about where those properties are, there isn't a specific area where we don't have EPC data. It's sporadic across the stock, and it's generally because we only undertook EPC surveys previously at change of tenancies, and now where we're doing them proactively as part of asset management surveys, we'll be collecting and improving that data. So it's not a particular area that doesn't have EPCs. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you. Does it?
Thank you very much.
Does it answer your question, Mary?
Perfect, thank you.
Oh, okay. All right, it's better than normal, I tell you honestly. Right. Raj, did you have any questions or comments at all? You're fine. Oh, okay, that's worrying, I tell you. Spencer, do you have any questions or comments at all?
Thank you. Just to follow up on Mary's question, so where there are properties that don't have EPCs, they weren't ruled out from potentially having these works completed just because they didn't have EPCs and then so couldn't be measured against that standard?
Patrick?
Yep. So far we haven't determined the Wave 3 properties, so we've only determined the Wave 2.2 ones. The targeted approach on that was non-traditional homes, and some of them, when we were looking at scoping that project, didn't have EPCs, but we knew they were non-traditional. So we went out and proactively undertook some EPCs ahead of that project so that we could understand where they didn't have an EPC, what the rating was, and whether they would be suitable for the scheme. So in that sense, no, it wasn't the EPC not being present that determined whether that property would be included in the scheme. And where we have non-traditional archetypes like BISIFs and easy forms, etc., we know generally where those are going to fall within the EPC range, and then we just went out to get an EPC at those properties to confirm that that was correct before proceeding, basically. So no, the short answer is no, it didn't prevent properties from falling into the Wave 2.2 round.
So if you didn't have an EPC already, you weren't at a reduced chance of having these works completed?
For the Wave 2.2 scheme, no, it was more about archetypes of properties in certain areas, and the determining factor was obviously whether PCC are owning it, and also whether the properties, if they were in a terrace, for example, if there were private owners in between council dwellings, it would make it more difficult to upgrade. So we were looking specifically at areas where there was more ownership in rows, effectively, so that there's continuity of insulation externally.
Thank you. You mentioned a specific wave, so is that going to be different so far as we can project for the different wave or waves?
So the Wave 3.0 work, where we're scoping that project at the moment, we are continually upgrading our EPC data, so there's less and less that have no EPC data at all. We haven't actually determined that list yet, and we are on the point where we're at the outset of that task now, so we'll review how we do that going forward.
Okay, does that answer your questions, Spencer? Sorry, just before I go to Derek, Patrick, what's non-traditional in English?
Non-traditional, also known as like post-war housing quite often, would be, or non-traditional prefab is another word for it. So it's basically system-built homes that were built after World War II. And many of those system-built homes are a standard design. They could be concrete panel systems, for example, could be steel frame systems. And generally they were readily available construction materials after World War II due to the production lines that were available at the time and the shortage of traditional building materials.
So would it be what we know as prefabs?
Yeah, prefab is a synonym, yeah.
Okay, so that'd be part of it, but it's that type of building, yeah?
Yeah, so generally, just to clarify, not brick traditional homes. It would be homes that are usually system built with concrete or steel.
Okay, sorry about that, Derek. I was just trying to be as clear as possible with everyone, okay? So do you have any questions or comments, Derek?
Only one. You said that you try to do rows of houses all together. If there was a property that obviously you've got a person that owns their property, then you've got a council one next door, and that's not being done, will that be done in the future, or is there an issue of you getting them done?
So it wasn't in all cases that we discounted properties where there's a private owner next door. There are some of those in the scheme, so they can be done in the future. Should we, come with a funded scheme in the future to do those properties, and we could also look at alternative measures if we come against any technical challenges. We could look at something other than external wall insulation to improve the EPC of that property.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Derek. So I have a few questions and then I'll do some summing up and some observations. So 3,598 properties without a certificate, well, that's a hell of a lot. So what processes are in place to try and cut that down? And let's say by April 2026, how many fewer will there be?
So currently we're, as part of our normal stock condition surveys, the team that are undertaking those surveys are doing an EPC at every property that they go to. We're trying to upscale that as much as we can at the moment. I don't have the data to hand to say how many we'll have achieved by this time next year, for example, but they are at pace trying to improve that measure and get EPCs. I'm
suggesting that you should, and that it will come back here at some stage, probably when we've got a report on progressing the third wave of this, because we do need to know, and residents need to know.
So we'll be back in 12 months to report on the monitoring and an update on the schemes, and can provide an update then as well.
And if there are any figures that are provided faster, then if they can be circulated to myself and Derek, Spencer and Raj, that will be and the Residents Consortium, apologies, that would be very helpful, because a sixth of the stock not knowing what their energy looks like ain't good. Okay? That's my first thing. My second point is, so you've got some great comments in here about the impact that Wave 1 has had already, and that's wonderful. Have we got an idea of how much bills are being saved as a result of this work? Have we done that sort of level of detail yet?
We don't quite understand that yet. We do need to go through a winter cycle really to understand how that's going to work, because that's obviously when most of the energy demand comes in. But we will be liaising with tenants that agree to help our understanding of how they're saving, to ask for their energy bills and potentially use smart meters to understand the level of energy that's being saved, and naturally the money that's saved as well from that. But it would go without saying really that these properties will be significantly warmer with the amount of insulation that's been applied to the external wall. So we are expecting significant cost savings for heating measures.
I think that'll be very useful, and I'll explain why in a minute. My final point is around the amount of government money on offer, which I have to say is bugger all for something as important as something that will save people's bills with a cost of living crisis. Have we had any explanation as to why these figures are so these numbers are so relatively small? And is the current government going to change that, given its commitments to net zero?
In relation to the funding opportunities that we've had available, so we've made applications on both opportunities to try and get awarded funding. We've worked with the officers and the funding bodies to understand what an appropriate bid level would be, and reacted on that basis. In terms of future funding opportunities and why certain amounts of money are on offer, I don't have any information on that. I can't speak on their behalf.
Okay, no, I understand that. Adam, if you've got any progress, that'd be great.
Just to clarify, with the funding criteria, there was timescales where you had to deliver the works by, so that was a limitation from our perspective in terms of what we had resources to deliver, and then also where aspects were match funded, we obviously had to consider this as part of the wider capital programme of maintenance work. So we tried to sort of bid for things that were realistic in terms of timescales, but then also things that we could match fund as well. So that was probably the limiting factor.
Okay. So in other words, government wants 50% of this to come out of people's rents. That's a simple yes or no answer to that. And I think the answer is yes.
The co-funding commitment on both schemes was 50%. Yeah.
Okay, so 50% of it has to come out of people's rents. Okay, interesting in itself. So I mean, this work is welcome, I have to say. I mean, decarbonisation and net zero not only helps with our children living in a half-decent world, but also, as Patrick and Adam have outlined, cuts people's bills in the here and now, which in a cost of living crisis, especially for poor people, is rather important. So I think it's the sort of thing that we should continue doing. I have to say I'm unsurprisingly stunned by the lack of money that is on offer. I mean, last week in this room, the four of us here, along with our 38 colleagues, discussed a motion on climate change, whereby I was asked to immediately, and apologies for the split infinitive, immediately replace all the gas boilers with renewable energy. I mean, highly impractical, but I think it shows the level of ambition that all parties in this council, well, all the parties that are here in this council, demonstrate for these things. And I'm amazed that this is not being backed up by government, because this is about our kids' futures. It's about cutting bills in the here and now for people who have to live paycheck to paycheck. And that's why this work is important. So I welcome this work. I think we should see if we can find other funding that's available. I suggest that once we get the learning, we go out to other housing associations and see what they're doing, and see if we can either impose that learning on other authorities, on other housing associations, or work with them to try and see if we can come up with common funding proposals. Because I think that'll be helpful, especially if half of the money is coming out of people's rents, when we're having to spend a large amount of money trying to comply with the new housing standards as well. So I think sweating those assets is the management jargon for that. But I think we might have to do that, and I think that might be appropriate. I think the other thing I would suggest is, Derek, for your independent colleagues in Paulsgrove, any learning, any info, please pass that back. Please get Chris and Brian to pass that back to the team. And similarly for Raj, Labour colleagues in Lee Park, any information, please get them to pass it back to the team. And then we can try and see if we can make progress from there, because it's good to know what people actually think of these things, and then we can change things accordingly. So this work is welcome. I wish there was more money for it, because it is important in the long term, and it saves people's bills in the here and now, which I'm told is rather important. So anyway, so I'm under orders to note this report. Is that right, Alison? So this report is duly noted. We look forward to the follow-up in 12 months' time, and any extra info, hopefully a lot faster than that. So that is the only item that is on the agenda. So therefore, colleagues, thank you very much for your comments and questions, and I close the meeting at 4:30 p.m. Cheers.